Core 2, let's start with the operating systems you'll work with every day. We'll look at Windows additions, system tools, command line utilities, and the core behaviors that shape how a system runs. Follow along with the visuals as we break down each environment and how technicians interact with it. Now that we're beginning Core 2, let's start with the operating systems you'll work with every day. We'll look at Windows additions, system tools, command line utilities, and the core behaviors that shape how a system runs. Follow along with the visuals as we break down each environment and how technicians interact with it. Part 1. Operating Systems, Domain 1.0. 1.1 Windows Editions and Capabilities. Microsoft Windows operating systems are segmented by editions tailored to specific market demographics and deployment environments. Windows Home, engineered for consumer-tier deployments. It lacks enterprise-class capabilities such as domain join, Active Directory integration, Azure Active Directory linking, group policy management, remote desktop host capabilities, can function as a client but cannot receive inbound RDP requests, and full disk encryption via BitLocker. Windows Pro, designed for professional and small business environments. It introduces support for domain join, group policy objects, GPOs, BitLocker full disk encryption, encrypting file system, EFS, and Hyper-V client-side virtualization. Windows Pro for workstations and enterprise. Engineered for high-performance computing and large-scale corporate environments. Enterprise editions offer advanced licensing models and exclusive capabilities like branch cache, local caching of WAN-based network files, and advanced deployment control via Windows Update for Business. Architectural constraints, 32-bit versus 64-bit 32-bit architectures, x86, are bounded by a hard physical memory addressing ceiling of 4 GB of RAM. 64-bit architectures, x64, expand the logical addressing range, theoretically supporting up to 16.8 exabytes of RAM. The Windows operating systems enforce practical licensing caps, e.g., 128 GB for Home, 2 TB for Pro. 1.2 Windows System Management Tools. Windows operating systems feature discrete administrative interfaces and management consoles to control system state, processes, and storage subsystems. Microsoft Management Console, MMC, a customizable framework hosting administrative snap-ins. Computer Management, CompTIA A, consolidates multiple standard snap-ins into a unified dashboard, including system tools, storage, and services. Core Management Snap-ins. Device Manager, MSC validates physical hardware states, manages device drivers, resolves I/O hardware conflicts, and executes driver rollbacks. Disk Management, MSC manages storage volumes, partitioning schemes, drive initialization, and RAID configurations. Event Viewer, MSC consolidates structural system logs across major categories: application, security, audit logs, setup, and system. Performance Monitor, MSC tracks real-time resource utilization via customizable hardware and software counters. Services, MSC controls the operation, startup profiles, and execution states of background service daemons. Task Scheduler, MSC automates the execution of scripts or binaries based on software triggers or chronological parameters. Local Security Policy, MSC manages host-level security configurations, user rights assignments, and password complexity criteria. Control Panel Applets. System properties allow modification of environment variables, virtual memory paging files, and remote access parameters. Internet Options manages LAN configurations, proxy routing, and TLS security settings. User Accounts manages credentials and user account control, UAC, security thresholds. 1.3 Windows Command Line Command Reference. Command line tools provide direct, low-overhead programmatic interaction with the OS subsystem. Absolute mastery of syntax and application is required. System Diagnostics and Repair. SFC/ScanNow. System File Checker scans and restores integrity violations across protected Windows system binaries using a local cached repository. Check disk/F/R verifies file system integrity /F and scans the physical storage medium for bad sectors, attempting to recover readable data /R. Bootrex/fixmber/fixboot/rebuild diagnostic switches used within the Windows recovery environment, WinRE, to repair the master boot record, regenerate a fresh volume boot sector, or fully rebuild the boot configuration data, BCD store. Process and policy management. Task list and task kill. Task list displays a real-time table of active processes with corresponding process IDs, PIDs. Task kill terminates execution threads using explicit PID flags. Task kill/PID 1234 or image names. Task kill/F/I'm notepad.exe. Update/force immediately overrides standard background polling intervals to force a re-evaluation and application of Active Directory group policies. Presult/R outputs a detailed summary of the resultant set of policy, RSOP, active on the local machine for the current user and computer. Storage and file allocation. This part launches an interactive, scriptable CLI environment for low-level storage volume creation, partitioning, and format routines. Copy, Scopy, Robocopy. Copy performs single file transfers. Scopy expands functionality to support multi-directory structural copies. Robocopy, robust file copy, delivers enterprise-tier multi-threaded data transfers, directory mirroring, and resilient network disconnect tolerance. 1.4 OS installation, partitioning, and file systems. Operating system deployment requires configuring physical storage blocks and structural file indexes. Boot and deployment architectures. Systems can initiate installation from local USB media, optical disks, or over networks via pre-boot execution environment, PXE, leveraging DHCP and trivial FTP, TFTP. Unattended installations utilize an automated answer file, authaunattend.xml, to pre-provision user responses, licensing keys, and configurations without human intervention. In-place upgrades versus clean installations. An in-place upgrade transitions an existing operating system to a newer version while structurally preserving user profiles, configuration files, and installed software applications. A clean installation completely overwrites target storage blocks, purging existing configurations to establish a baseline OS state. Storage partitioning topologies. Master boot record, MBR legacy partitioning standard, restrained to a maximum of 4 primary partitions and a structural volume size cap of 2 terabytes. GUID partition table, GPT modern partitioning standard mandatory for UEFI firmware architectures. Supports up to 128 primary partitions and scales into zettabytes of storage capacity, integrating cyclical redundancy checks, CRC, to protect partition table integrity. File system standards. NTFS, New Technology File System, the native standard for modern Windows deployment. Features granular file level security, NTFS permissions, file compression, disk quotas, native encryption via EFS, and journaling for fault tolerance. FAT32, Legacy File System Standard, heavily restricted by a maximum individual file size limit of 4 gigabytes and a maximum volume size capacity of 32 gigabytes. exFAT, engineered specifically for removable flash media, overcoming FAT32 storage bounds while maintaining low software overhead by omitting deep NTFS journaling features. Extension 4, the standard native journaling file system deployed across Linux distributions. APFS, Apple File System, the native, flash-optimized encryption-centric file system utilized across modern macOS deployments. 1.5 macOS and Linux operational environments. IT infrastructure technicians must navigate alternative desktop environments and underlying Unix/Linux terminal utilities, macOS architecture, and core utilities. Time Machine, automated incremental backup tool that creates historic point-in-time file states. Snapshot, read-only localized point-in-time system configurations that allow rapid state rollbacks. Keychain, a system-wide, cryptographically secured password and credential management repository. Spotlight, highly indexed metadata engine for system-wide asset searches. Force quit, immediately halts unresponsive application loops. CMD plus opt plus escape. Linux command line navigation and maintenance. Navigation, pwd, print working directory. CD, change directory path. ls, la, list directory contents with hidden attributes and long permissions. Management, cp, copy files. mv, move or rename file assets. rm, remove files. rm, rf forcefully deletes directory structures. dir, create new directory. Search and permissions. grep, pattern matching text processing search engine. chmod, modifies file permissions using octal notation, e.g., chmod 755 script sh. chown, modifies explicit user or group ownership metrics. System operations, PSAUX, displays comprehensive real-time snapshot of active system processes. Top, interactive process monitor tracking CPU/memory usage. Kill, terminates process loops via explicit PID tracking. Sudo, elevates command execution parameters to superuser/root status. Package management, apt-get, advanced package tool used across Debian/Ubuntu platforms. Yum, Yellow Dog Update, modified used on Red Hat/CentOS platforms. Automates software package installation, update loops, and structural dependency resolution. Domain 1.0 mini summary. Windows Home lacks enterprise capabilities like domain join, group policy management, and BitLocker encryption. Use administrative consoles like comptIA and services.msc to monitor background operations and manage host assets. Understand critical CLI tools. SFC repairs system files, checkdisk fixes storage arrays, and pupdate forces group policy updates. MBR partitions are limited to 2 terabytes and 4 primary partitions. GPT scales to zettabytes and is required for modern UEFI systems. Before we continue to Domain 7, let's do a review of what we just covered in Domain 6 with a short quiz. Question 1. Which Windows system tool is used to manage hardware drivers and device settings? A. Device Manager. B. Disk Cleanup. C. System Restore. D. Snipping Tool. Correct answer. A. Device Manager. Explanation. Device Manager is where you view hardware devices and manage/update drivers. Question 2. In Windows command line, what command is used to display the current IP configuration? A. Ping. B. IP protocol configuration. C. Traceroute. D. Format. Correct answer. B. IP protocol configuration. Explanation. IP protocol configuration shows details like IP address, subnet mask, and default gateway. Question 3. During OS installation, why do you partition a drive? A. To increase RAM. B. To create regions the installer can format and use for the OS and storage. C. To speed up Wi-Fi automatically. D. To install printer drivers. Correct answer. B. To create regions the installer can format and use for the OS and storage. Explanation. Partitioning divides the disk so the installer can create usable storage targets and file systems. Question 4. Which Windows file system is commonly used for system drives on modern installations? A. APFS. B. Extension 4. C. NTFS. D. FAT32 only. Correct answer. C. NTFS. Explanation. NTFS is the standard file system for most Windows local drives. Question 5. On Linux/macOS, what does the command ls do? A. Lists directory contents. B. Creates partitions. C. Installs software packages. D. Restores system backups. Correct answer. A. Lists directory contents. Explanation. ls displays the files and folders in a specified directory. Security.